Sentinel Mindset.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to be part of the Canine unit? Today we are at District 3 in the town of Georgina with York Regional Police, where we're going to be talking to a sergeant who handles these incredible canines, the benefit of using dogs to be able to perform police duties, and what it's like to get in this unit. You don't want to miss this episode. Next on the Sentinel Mindset. Okay guys, we're here right now with Sergeant Trevor Morrison from York Regional Police in the Canine unit. How are you doing today, Trevor?
Very well, thank you. Yes.
Amazing. So tell me right now, first of all, we just saw a little bit of, I guess, some instructions that you were giving. What's his name, by the way?
So this is police service dog Cesar.
Cesar.
He's 2 years old. He's a German Shepherd from Slovakia.
Okay.
And he's still in the early stages of his training.
This is 2 years old, this big.
That's right.
Wow.
Yes. Yep. So what I was doing a little bit there is just his obedience. It's still a bit of a work in progress. He's a young dog. It takes countless hours of constant repetition to build what we want into the police dogs. But essentially, yes, I was just doing a bit of obedience there with him, calling him to heel, ensuring he remains at my side when we're walking and whatnot. And yeah, he's progressing very well.
Okay. Would we say you're his main handler?
Yes, so each handler within Canine has their own assigned police service dog.
Okay.
So, and that dog works specifically with that handler alone.
Okay.
So this is my dog, he only works with me. And part of the reason for that is it's imperative beyond the training aspect that the police service dog and the handler form a very tight bond relationship.
Right.
And we're really measured upon the team that we make, that we build together in order to accomplish what we do in the community.
So for example, I have a dog, his name is Kylo, and he, I mean, considering in hierarchy, I'd be considered the alpha of the household and my family of four. He takes a lot of instructions from me, but I also find with other family members that he doesn't really give them that same kind of attention that he would do with me.
Yeah.
Would you say it's the same thing because you're identified as the alpha to the relationship?
Yes, it's exactly. It's a very important distinction to make between a pet and a working dog.
Okay.
So Cesar and all the dogs within our unit are working dogs.
Okay.
So the dogs really only have interaction with their assigned handler. So
okay.
Me. So obviously my family, they don't interact with him.
Really?
I have other pets at home, they don't interact with him. It's imperative that the dogs only interact with the handler to form that special bond and relationship.
Okay.
And beyond that as well, it's important that we want the dogs to come into work with a high drive and willingness to want to do the job. So it's important that really the only interaction that Cesar has is with me.
Okay, so he comes home with you, like.
So every dog goes home with their handlers.
Okay.
They live 24/7 with their handlers.
Understand.
So
okay.
They really become part of the family. Every officer has a dog run and a dog house set up for their assigned police dog.
Yeah.
Where the dogs live in when we're off duty at home.
Yeah.
So no different for Cesar here.
Okay.
And then when we come into work, the dogs obviously come into work with us, and they go from our own vehicle into the police vehicle. And that police vehicle really becomes their home away from home.
Okay.
We really are big on operational readiness within Canine unit, the same as the emergency response unit. So when I arrive to work, Cesar will go into the police truck, and he's always ready to deploy if a call comes up that we're required for, or any other tasking that might come our way.
How many hours a week does he work?
So within Canine, we follow the same platoon schedule. The constables on the road, that is, follow the same platoon schedule as the officers on the road. So we work a 2-day, 2-night rotation, 4 days off. So 12-hour shifts. A big part of our work when we're not responding to calls is training.
Okay.
So in any given shift, we might train the dogs upwards of 4 or 5 hours depending on what task we're working on.
Okay.
There are 2 constables per platoon. So the officers will work together with their dogs and setting up different types of scenarios and types of specific training, whether that be tracking, building searching, what you just saw here, obedience. And it's a continual process that lasts throughout the dog's entire life. It never stops. Dogs learn through repetition, positive reinforcement, and those are the things that we do on a day-to-day basis.
So, you know, this is interesting that you're saying this when it comes to training, and we're gonna open up that little world right now because that's a huge part of the dog's success. So when it comes to training, you know, a lot of times, you know, when you can get to that skill level, if you stop training, you could also start losing that skill as well. That's just why you're always putting on the repetitive motion.
Absolutely. So working in Canine is no different than officers on the road. So we're asked to be we're held to a higher standard with regards to our training because we receive a higher level of standard,
Yeah.
a higher level of training.
Right.
And a big part of that is just constant repetition. So with regards to specifically the police dogs, we are constantly trying to expose them to things that they may encounter in the real world in a training environment.
Okay.
So it's not the dog's first time seeing it in a real world. So we will set up dynamic training scenarios that involve other units, including our emergency response unit, our air support unit, and we try and expose the dogs and the handlers to scenarios that they may encounter in real life, so they're prepared and well equipped to deal with it.
And this is
so
happening
it's not
every
their
week?
first time. Every day.
Every day?
Every day.
Okay.
So we set up training every day. So the dogs, so my first police service dog, Nero, throughout his 9-year career, he was exposed to, again, thousands of hours of simulated training, whether that be tracking, building searching, all those things, and different types of scenarios. Again, so when we see it in the real world, when we're responding to calls for service in the community, it's not the dog's first time seeing it. He's already exposed it to it in a training environment in a positive way.
Okay.
So we're able to better respond to those types of calls.
Now, Cesar, did you get him at a young age, like 2 or 3 months?
So typically the dogs, and no different for Cesar, we get the dogs when they're about a year old.
Okay.
Okay. So Cesar and all the other dogs, they come from Europe. They come from kennels that breed dogs specifically for military and law enforcement purposes.
So there's DNA in there.
DNA. So we proven genes.
Yes.
Okay. These dogs are bred for a specific purpose. So so we get the dogs when they're about a year old, and then they come untrained. And then we do all of our in-house training within York Regional Police.
Yeah.
So when the dogs come over from Europe, they're partnered with a police officer, a handler, and they embark upon a course that lasts about 3 months, and we refer to that as the basic canine handler course.
Okay.
And the dogs are untrained. In most cases, the handler's untrained, and they embark on that course together.
Okay.
And we do all that in-house training, and throughout that course, it's train the dog to do all the things that we're asking them to do in the community that's required of a police service dog.
Okay.
So tracking, building and area searching, evidence searching, obedience, agility, handler protection. So all those things, it takes about 3 months to accomplish all that, and that's not a hard and fast rule. Dogs are individuals just like people, and some progress faster than others, but typically it's about 3 months. And when all those tests and training is completed, the officer and the dog then have to go through a series of tests to test their proficiency and able to accomplish all those different taskings.
Okay.
And then once they complete that, then they are certified to be operational on the road. But that's just the beginning.
Right.
As we discussed earlier, training within this unit is on a continual basis.
Okay.
And we're constantly training. Every dog has its own strengths and weaknesses, and the handlers are aware of those. And we try and key in on those when we're designing training for those specific dogs.
Okay, perfect. We kind of went into the training piece. Can you just tell me how like someone might be asking, how does a dog really help, in the police service? What are some of the senses that could, that a dog has that, for example, a human doesn't, that makes them so, lucrative to have as a service dog?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, I think one of the most obvious and one of the most important, biological assets that the dogs bring to policing in general is their strong sense of smell. So, these police dogs and German Shepherds in particular have a tremendous sense of smell. We refer to it as their olfactory receptors in their nose.
Right.
Okay. These allow dogs to detect odors that are even very faint, that are not detectable by humans. Okay.
Okay.
And in addition to that, they're able to differentiate between various odors. So we use that to our advantage. So in a person, we have about 5 to 6 million olfactory receptors in our nose. So in comparison, the German Shepherd has about 220 million olfactory receptors in his nose. So we use that to our advantage. So one of the biggest things that we do is tracking. And essentially that's tracking the freshest human scent on the ground from point A to point B. And the dog's nose allows us to do that, okay? Secondly, and one of the main reasons we use German Shepherds again is their athleticism, okay? These dogs, as you can see from Cesar, these dogs are athletes, and we treat them like that. They're very well adept to doing the difficult tasks that we ask them to do in the community. So whether that be navigating fences, crossing, rivers, going through marshy areas, like all these things, these dogs are well equipped to deal with just based on their anatomy. And lastly, or I should say lastly, thirdly, their intelligence. Okay, these dogs are tremendously intelligent and they're very trainable. So we can train the dogs to do lots of different things. So I touched on a few of those things earlier with regards to tracking, building, searching, and whatnot. But in addition to that, we also have dogs that have specific trained capabilities that can detect odors such as explosives, firearms and ammunition, narcotics, human remains, and currency.
Okay.
So again, and then the last thing I would say is they're very social dogs. So a big part of our job, in addition to being operational on the road, is interacting with our communities. Going out there at doing community demonstrations, visiting with the public, and these dogs are well adapted to do that. They're very social animals, and that's a big part of our job as well.
Amazing. Can you give me an example of when your unit would be called? Like what a typical day would be like for you? You get into the office, like how would it work? How would it work?
So we place a high degree upon physical fitness.
Okay.
That's the handler and obviously the police service dog.
Yeah.
So with regards to our handler, typically within a portion of our shift, there's a period of time dedicated to physical fitness for the handler. So that takes up a portion of our shift.
Okay.
In addition to that, obviously I just discussed earlier is training.
Yes.
So setting up training. But then beyond that, police service dogs in our communities are responding to calls every day. And those are a wide range of calls. Those can respond to where offenders have committed criminal offenses and fled on foot. The police service dogs are obviously an obvious asset to that type of call. But in addition to that, missing people, missing vulnerable people, the dogs have located numerous missing people throughout their career that, had they not been found, could have been tragic outcomes. They assist investigators with locating crucial pieces of evidence that at times has been discarded by suspects fleeing the scene of crime, but also assisting our emergency response unit with high-risk incidents that could occur and have occurred in the community. So yeah, no day is the same. Every day is different. It's hard to give you an exact day of what our days look like because every day looks different.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
So amazing to hear what Cesar can do, the training and all. A question to you right now. How long have you been in the Canine unit for?
So I joined the Canine unit in 2014. I completed our selection process to join the unit. Fortunately, I was successful in that, and I joined as a full-time member in 2015. So for 9 years, I worked my first police service dog. His name is Nero in the unit. And then recently, this past spring, I was promoted to the rank of sergeant, and I've remained in the unit as a supervisor.
Yes.
And now I'm partnered with police service dog Cesar.
Okay. Do you enjoy it?
Absolutely. I mean, this has been, without a doubt, one of the, or the highlight of my career as a police officer. This was something I always had a keen interest in doing. But, you know, I never really thought maybe I'd get the chance to do it.
Yeah.
But it really requires you to really put yourself out there. You know, I really worked on my physical fitness, attain those skills as a frontline police officer, those necessary competencies that we look for in a handler, developing those competencies, and then fortunately I was able to obtain a position in a full-time capacity.
It almost sounds like it's not a job. It sounds like it's fun. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You know, I would argue that working in Canine unit is probably one of the more demanding areas of policing, one of the more unique areas of policing. I mean, this job, this becomes a lifestyle. You know, unlike a regular police officer, when they finish their shift, they hand their book in, they go home to their family.
Right.
This job is not like that.
Right.
These dogs are with you 24/7. So this is a job that you take home with you every day. Even on your days off, on your vacation, the dog is always with you. So it's a really
okay. Hold on. This is actually, you bring up a good point. So let's say you go on vacation.
Yeah.
Where does Cesar go?
Well, it depends where we go. So if I'm going away just for a day or two, for example, at a cottage, I'll bring the dog with me.
Okay.
He's with me.
What are the Bahamas?
Bahamas is a bit different. Okay, so at our facility, at our headquarters in Aurora, we do have kenneling facilities.
Okay.
Where we can keep the dogs on a short-time basis. So because we have officers working 24/7 coverage, there's always a handler there available to look after each other's dogs.
Okay.
But typically beyond that, the dog is always with me at home.
Okay, amazing. Trevor, so for yourself right now, if anyone's asking, how do I get into this unit? I mean, you just can't come off and apply and get on. You know, once you got to go through the stages, get to first class constable to apply to a specialty unit. But if you're looking at getting onto this unit, what are skills that you should be working on in your 4 years to develop so you can be lucrative for this unit?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'll touch on a few of the things and then our selection process. So we have a very rigorous selection process within the Canine unit. So as you mentioned, the first thing is to be a first class police constable. So we want officers to, you know, equip themselves with the skills and the knowledge that they require from being a frontline police officer first. And that varies for everybody. I mean, it could be 4, 5, 6. We've had people apply with more than 10 years on the job. So, but it's really imperative that you obtain those necessary skills and, you know, respond to calls in your community in a frontline capacity before applying to a specialty position such as this. Beyond that, some of the traits that we look for in our candidates are critical thinking, you know, ability to make high stress decisions while under high stress, your ability to have resiliency, problem solving, again, and maintaining a high level of physical fitness that you've demonstrated that's important to you. So those are some of the real big ones.
Okay.
Our process starts out with when there is a position available, we have what we call a task-specific fitness test. So we have a specific fitness test that we've developed within our unit that every candidate has to complete in a successful time in order to move on to the next stage.
Okay.
And this fitness test encompasses obstacles that our handlers face in the real world environment.
Okay.
So it involves navigating tall fences, crossing bodies of water, lifting heavy obstacles over fences to simulate the weight of a police dog.
Okay.
So all these types of challenges that are reflective of what a handler's day-to-day challenges are in the real world.
Okay.
Once officers complete that physical fitness test, they then move on to an interview. And that interview really assesses those necessary competencies that we talked about, such as problem solving, resiliency, critical thinking. And we assess that police officer's experience as a frontline police officer. If they're successful in the interview, then they move on to a week-long, basically we call it an assessment week.
Okay.
And we put the officers through a battery of evolutions that test those things we talked about, their critical thinking. We put them through scenario-based testing that goes beyond what a frontline police officer would receive in their general training,
Okay.
specifically tailored to the types of events that they're going to be faced with as a handler in Canine.
Okay.
If they're successful through all those stages, then they are what we would call an alternate, and they go into a pool of candidates, and when there's a full-time position that becomes available, then we draw from that pool of candidates, and you become a full-time member of the unit.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So would you say it's helpful to have at least experience having a dog?
Absolutely. So I think it goes without saying that I think in order to want to work in Canine, you have to have a keen interest in dogs to begin
You have
with.
a passion for them.
Exactly, you have to have a passion. I
Yeah.
mean, I think I can speak for myself and everyone in the unit. We all have a strong interest in animals and specifically dogs.
Yeah.
You have to have that. So that would be key number one.
Amazing.
And then,
Okay.
yeah, and then have anything outside of your policing with regards to animal experience is certainly beneficial. Could help.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now Cesar's 2 years old. Okay.
Yes.
We're gonna see now another one of his, what would you say, his brothers or his cousins?
Yeah, we're going to see another police dog I have. His name is police service dog Odin.
Odin,
So
okay.
he is 4.5, coming 5. Cesar, he is a German Shepherd. Unlike Cesar's sable color, he's black.
Okay.
And he is a general purpose police dog, but then in addition to that, he's also an explosive detector dog. So
Okay,
he's trained
wow.
in the detection of explosives.
Okay, so let's dive into that. Let's take a look at Odin, and maybe if you can also showcase what Odin can do as well a little bit.
Okay.
All right, amazing.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Stay. 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 Odin. Heel. Down. 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 Good boy. Good boy. That boy, Odin. That boy. That boy. That's kind of all we can do for Odin for now.
Okay, that's
good.
amazing. Amazing.
All right. That
So-
boy. That boy. Come on.
So this is one of the things that they kind of use to do some training with.
Yeah, so this is Odin's a reward. So
Okay.
all the dogs work for a reward. So this is his tug toy that he's done a good job. He gets that as his reward. So
Yeah,
he's obviously
okay.
a bit more experienced than the last dog you saw.
Yes.
You can just tell in his demeanor he's a bit more calm. He's a
Yeah.
bit more relaxed.
Yeah, he's an adult.
Yeah.
He's a full adult. So let me ask you this: you said Odin, one of his specialty skills is explosives.
That's right.
So walk me a little bit about that. Like, how would that come into play? He can actually detect like the scent of the powders in the explosive.
Yeah, so there's a tremendous amount of odors that encompass the profile of explosives, obviously,
Yes.
and Odin is proficient in detecting those odors. So as we discussed earlier, the dog's nose is tremendously strong in that they can differentiate between different odors. So in his training, he's been exposed to all the different odors that go into creating explosives, and he can differentiate them all separately. So he's utilized a lot within our police department, specifically in partnership with our emergency response unit, given his capabilities.
Okay, amazing. For him specifically, temperament-wise, you said he's a lot more calmer. Are they a lot more trainable? Like as they get older, they get more stubborn, or is it somewhere like they just continue that momentum?
I think as they get older, they recognize their job more. Obviously, through repetition comes perfection.
Yes.
And that's something we always strive for. And yeah, he's definitely more calm. He's more confident in his abilities. He knows his job. He knows the commands.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's definitely, I would say he's more calmer than the last dog. Certainly.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now, we're not going to be able to see this demonstration today of him kind of like maybe lunging at someone on command, but can you just talk about that? Like, have there been situations where he needed to apprehend someone and he was able to do that at a lot faster speed and successfully able
Absolutely.
to do that?
So a big part of our job is that these police dogs, they're trained in what we call criminal apprehension.
Yes.
Okay. And in partnership with that is also handler protection. So they are a use of force option, the same as any other use of force option that a police officer wears.
Okay.
And you know, if circumstances dictate, for example, if an offender, suspect who's arrestable for a criminal offense is fleeing on foot, you know, is not obeying police commands, and there's a threat that that person, if he were not apprehended, would pose a threat to the community, then the police dog can be deployed to, again, apprehend that person. So essentially grab hold of that person and hold them in place until a police officer, myself included, and other cover officers with me, uniformed police officers, can make our way to that suspect and then safely take that person into custody.
Okay.
So yes, the dogs are trained to do that.
Okay. The commands you give the dog are all in English.
Yes.
If someone heard the commands and was able, would they listen to me? Like, for example, if I told the dog heel or sit, whatever, would he listen to me? Or is he almost geared to only take instructions from you?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
No, he's only geared to take commands from me. So you may
Okay.
hear me say commands when we're doing obedience.
Yeah.
But really, the dog has that partnership with me and that obedience with me. So he's only going to respond to the commands with me.
Yeah,
okay?
so a criminal can't be like heel when he starts running
No.
after him.
And a really good question that comes up a lot often too
Yeah.
is, obviously the dogs come from Europe. I get asked a lot during demonstrations is, will the dogs respond to commands in other language?
Like German or anything.
Exactly.
Like that, right? Yeah,
So when the dogs come over here, typically they're untrained.
Okay.
So we impose or impart upon them English commands. And
Right.
the dogs become very proficient in learning English commands.
Right.
But we do have dogs that have come with some prior training.
Right.
Where they respond to those commands, for example, in Dutch.
Okay.
We get some dogs
Wow.
from Holland. So the handlers have continued to use those commands. So we do
Okay.
have dogs in our unit where the handlers will use Dutch commands.
Okay.
I'm asking to do things because
For
it's
those,
just, that's
for
what
those
the dog
people that
knows.
don't have dogs, right? The dog is not really, if you're saying a dog to sit, it's not really the word sit. It's basically the cadence and the sound of the word with the
Yes.
emphasis that you're putting it on,
Exactly. Dogs respond with, you know, playful language.
Yes.
Like, you know, you can't be as a very flat personality and just say sit. Like, they're not going to respond to that. It's the tone of your voice. It's how you say the words. Your demeanor when you're saying the word, that's very important. And that's a
Okay.
big part of it. You're right.
Okay.
So, yes.
What's the vertical of these animals? If they have to jump, I know you say they jump fences, for example.
Yes.
Has there been a height that you've seen them jump over? Because I've seen some videos online,
Yes.
and they look insane what these dogs can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Upwards of 8 feet.
Wow.
Yeah, no problem.
Wow.
So
Amazing.
every dog has its different athleticism. I mean, obviously
Yes.
the first dog I had, Cesar, is a bit taller than Odin.
Yes.
Longer legs. I would suggest he could probably jump a taller fence than Odin.
Okay.
But yes, all the dogs are trained in agility. So
Okay.
that's navigating stairs,
Okay.
going over tall fences,
Yes.
going through tunnels and
Okay.
whatnot. And another thing that often causes dogs problem that we train is stairs with no backs on them.
Right.
The dogs are trained to do that as well. So all these things we're constantly exposing the dogs to. So again, so when we see them in real life, they've already been exposed to it in a training environment.
Okay. He's 5.
Yeah.
His retirement would be at what age, would you say?
So there's really no hard and fast rule to say we retire the dogs at a specific age.
Yes.
So we have a strong relationship with our veterinarian in Toronto.
Okay.
So every year the dogs receive a thorough medical exam, and we assess them every year to determine if they're able to continue to keep on with their police work. So
Okay.
all those tests that we discussed earlier in their initial training, just the same as an officer has to requalify on all their use of force options every year, it's no different for a police dog. So every year we as a team have to accomplish all those tests and requalify every year.
Okay.
So as long as the dog is able to do those tests every year,
Yeah.
he is still in top physical condition to do the job.
Okay.
He receives a clean bill of health from a veterinarian, and he has a willingness and a desire to do the work, then he'll continue on. So my last police dog, Nero, worked up until he was 9.5. So, but then there are other dogs that don't work near that long. They're all individuals, just like people. So it's really on a case-by-case basis.
So at that 9.5 mark, your last dog, at
Yeah.
that point, I know their lifespan is, what, 10, 11 years old, roughly?
Larger dogs, they can live up to 13, 14, depending.
Okay, so
Yeah.
with Nero, for example,
Yeah.
when he retired,
Yeah.
does he stop living with you?
No, so the dogs live with their handler, so they make that transition
Wow.
from a working dog to
Okay.
being a pet.
A pet? Wow.
Exactly. So
Okay.
I'm not suggesting they all of a sudden come in the house the next day they retire.
Yeah,
or
yeah, of
anything.
course,
It's a
yes.
slow transition.
Okay.
But yes, we would lay off the training, obviously. The dog will get more time to, obviously relax and be
Yeah.
at home with my family.
Okay, nice.
And then just enjoy his retirement.
Okay. You know how they say as you get older, I mean, for of course humans right now, building muscle is imperative for like longevity and such, and it puts us in a better advantage healthy-wise from someone that doesn't work out. With an average dog's lifespan being anywhere between like 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, if they're doing all this exercise and like muscle building, I can say, does that also give them an edge health-wise opposed to a dog that just takes walks?
Absolutely. So, like I said, we refer to these dogs and we treat them like athletes.
Yes.
Because they are athletes.
Okay.
So they get a very high protein diet. They don't get treats at home. They're not treated like a pet dog. So,
Yes.
But absolutely, through the repetitions and the training that we do, they build muscle the same as an athlete.
Okay.
And we treat them as such.
Okay. What kind of food do you feed them? Like, is there special diets that they have?
So he's on a very high protein kibble diet.
Okay.
We have to have food that we're able to feed on the road.
Yes.
Often our job takes us at times even beyond York region into neighboring jurisdictions,
Okay.
well beyond the end of our shift. So we have to be able to feed the dogs on the road if need be. So we feed them a high kibble diet. Another thing we didn't touch on, but the dogs' shift schedules really mimic our own shift schedules.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
as I said, we work days, a mix of days and night shifts.
Yes.
So the same way during a night shift, I would be sleeping through the day in order to rest for my night shift.
Right.
The dogs are the same.
Wow.
So they really end up mimicking the handlers' schedules in all aspects.
Okay.
Yep.
Amazing. Look, this has been an incredible experience. I guess I got one last question for you. What is the favorite part of the job for you?
I think one of the most rewarding jobs is twofold. I think number one, the rewarding aspect of being partnered with a police dog, seeing them from untrained, and then over the course of their career working together, seeing what we can accomplish as a team together, and seeing them improve and develop their own skills is tremendously rewarding.
Okay.
But then also seeing that the important role that we as a unit play in the community through a whole number of different tasks. So whether that's be responding to calls for service for criminals that have fled on foot, assisting families in locating their loved ones who are lost or disoriented, and then also working very closely with our investigative partners, both within our own police organization and externally as well, in helping to locate crucial evidence to see successful prosecutions. So
Okay.
I would say all those things together make this a very rewarding career.
Amazing. Sergeant Morrison, I want to thank you for your time. This has been very, very interesting, eye-opening. I think it's very commendable that you even have this, like, the working relationship with the dog outside of working, which I think is awesome. And I also want to thank you for what you do as a protector and, just helping, create that order and maintain peace. So thank you for that. And this is going to be a very interesting one. And I really hope a lot of people can learn from this. So thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Amazing.
Okay.
All right, guys, hope you enjoyed that. Catch the next one coming up soon. Talk soon. Thank you for joining me in today's podcast. This podcast was created for protectors in the fields of law enforcement, executive protection, security, and anyone looking to level up their mindset. If you are learning from this podcast and you're enjoying it, please subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Sentinel Mindset. That's a zero-cost way to support us. In addition, please subscribe to the podcast both on Spotify and Apple. And on both Spotify and Apple, you can leave us up to a 5-star review. If you have questions for me or comments about the podcast or guests you would like me to consider on The Sentinel Mindset, please post all comments on YouTube. I do read all the comments. Please also check out our sponsors, thearenatoronto.com. The Arena was created to help all those in the fields of law enforcement, security, and all that achieve their fitness goals. I want to thank our producer Matthew Doyle and creative supports Jaslyn Singh, who help me with this podcast every week. We value your feedback and are here to support you. Tune into the Sentinel Mindset every week, where we look in the mirror to make real changes and explore what it takes to achieve greatness in your craft.
This podcast is brought to you by Executive Protection Lifestyle Canada. Make sure to drop by next week and don't forget to subscribe.